Lieutenant Mitaka entered the observation deck, swallowed his fear, and stepped toward the tall, caped figure silhouetted against the spray of stars. The caped figure did not turn. He did not have to. Mitaka knew Ren was as aware of his arrival as if he had watched him approach. He was tracking the lieutenant with something other than eyes. "What is it, Lieutenant?" Kylo breathed. The lieutenant's breath hitched in his throat, and he briefly closed his eyes. "Lord Ren," Mitaka began, his voice trembling despite his best efforts to remain calm. We have failed to capture the droid. It escaped the planet with the assistance of the traitor." A long silence followed, Kylo Ren's breathing, deep and controlled. Mitaka's words hung in the air like a noxious cloud, and he could almost feel the temperature of the room rise. Before he could finish, the unmistakable hum of Kylo's lightsaber ignited in the distance, followed by a surge of crackling power. Kylo's rage was quick, and it consumed him entirely. He exploded into action, his anger a whirlwind of violent energy. His saber cut through everything it came in contact with reckless fury, sending sparks and debris scattering in every direction. The lightsaber slashed through consoles, control panels, and walls, leaving molten destruction in its wake. Kylo's breaths grew more erratic as he let loose the full force of his fury. Mitaka's body tensed as he stood frozen, watching Kylo's destructive wrath unfold. And as quickly as it began, it was over as Ren's lightsaber deactivated. The lieutenant's heart raced. He didn't have a chance to explain the full scope of the failure, the second piece of critical information. "Is there more?" Kylo asked, breathing heavily. The ground beneath Mitaka seemed to tremble, and before he could react, he felt his body jerk off the ground, lifted by the power of the dark side. Kylo's gloved hand reached out, grasping at the air. The lieutenant's body was drawn toward him, helpless and unable to fight against the invisible force that held him in place. He gasped for air as the pressure around his chest intensified. A scavenger girl helped them escape in the Millennium Falcon. The lieutenant's speech was restricted, as was his throat. He struggled to breathe, gasping in an attempt to get the words out. His body writhed in Kylo's grip, but the Sith Lord's power was overwhelming. "What girl?" Kylo demanded. After successfully pushing the ship into deep space, Finn and Rey met in the lounge, exhilarated by their narrow escape. Their words tumbled out in a breathless rush as they recounted every moment of the daring maneuver. But as the adrenaline began to fade, they found themselves in an unexpected silence, staring at each other in awe of what they had just survived. Rey, still processing the experience, realized how close they had come to disaster. She had piloted ships before, in service to a scavenger band she had been hired out to or for Unkar Plutt to test various vehicles he intended to purchase. She had even piloted the ship they were now on a time or two for her former guardian while he made repairs. But nothing like this, navigating at insane speeds and defying physics in a way that felt almost instinctive. Finn, equally shaken, was mesmerized by Rey's abilities. The intensity of the moment made him feel more alive than he ever had before. As the silence stretched, he finally asked, "I don't know your name?" Rey introduced herself, and Finn, smiling, shared his own FN2, he began, his new name still unfamiliar on his tongue. Then he smiled. "Finn? My name's Finn." The brief exchange was interrupted by a loud bang from the far side of the room, as a section of decking shot upward, sending vapor spilling into the lounge. Without hesitation, Rey moved toward the damage, her focus sharpening. "What was that?" Finn said, startled. Rey squinted through the mist, trying to assess the damage below. "I don't know," she said, her voice tense. "Just hope it's not the motivator. A ship this age and class is bound to have one." Without hesitation, she crouched and slid into the opening beneath the deck. Finn watched in disbelief. "You're going down there, without knowing what the problem is?" Rey met his gaze, her voice steady despite the danger. "The only way to know what the problem is to go down there, unless you've got a better idea." Finn hesitated, his heart racing, unsure whether to be impressed or terrified. Finally, he muttered with a grin, "You're insane." Rey's head popped up from the depths, sweat streaming down her face.
Grab me a Harris wrench, check in there.
How bad is it?
If we want to live, not good.
They're hunting for us now, but we've got to get out of this system.
He quickly unlatched the storage container and began rummaging through the mess of tools and parts. His training as a stormtrooper had prepared him for basic repairs, but the container's chaotic contents made it a difficult task.
BB-8 said the location of the resistance bases need to know. If I'm taking you there, I need to know.
This?
Okay, between us, I'm not with the resistance, Finn confessed, his words low enough for only the droid to register. He glanced at BB-8. I don't know where the base is or how to find it. BB-8 emitted a few surprised beeps, its dome tilting in response. Finn sighed, rubbing his neck. I'm not proud of it, but we're in the middle of something bigger. The droid beeped again, considering his words. Finn looked around the room, then spoke again. We need to get out of here, away from the First Order. After that, I'll help Rey find your base. I promise. BB-8 shifted slightly, satisfied.
So where's your base?
Go on, BB-8, tell her.
The Millennium system.
Yeah, the Millennium system, that's the one. Get us there as fast as you can.
I'll drop you to Panema Terminal.
Rey continued working, and soon called out for bonding tape. Finn dug through the container again, his frustration growing as the ship groaned under stress. What about you? He asked, worried about Rey's safety. You're a target now. The Resistance will protect you. Rey shook her head, determined. I gotta get back to Jakku. Why does everyone want to go back to Jakku? Finn snapped, frustrated. It's a wasteland. They continued arguing while Finn struggled to follow her directions to find the right tool. Desperate, he turned to BB-8, who guided him to the correct sealer. Rey's tense expression softened as she grabbed the tool, but the urgency remained. The ship was still falling apart, and time was running out. As the vapor slowed and the alarm stopped, an eerie calm took over the lounge. Finn called down after her.
You're a pilot. You can fly anywhere. Why go back? You got a family? Got a boyfriend? Cute boyfriend?
None of your business, that's why.
The lights flickered ominously before dimming. BB-8 beeped nervously, and Finn's unease grew. That can't be good, he muttered. Rey agreed, and they headed to the cockpit where Finn was stopped cold by a dead console. It's the motivator, isn't it? He asked, his heart racing. Rey didn't answer immediately. It's worse than the motivator? He pressed. Rey's hands moved over the unresponsive controls. I fixed that. This is something else. She slumped back, defeated. Someone's locked onto us. All our controls are overridden. They've taken control of life support, too. Who? Finn asked anxiously. Rey could only shrug. I don't know. Finn moved to the observation dome. See anything? Rey asked. Yeah, he replied flatly as he gazed out. A massive freighter loomed ahead, its cargo bay wide open. Their ship, powerless and defenseless, was being drawn in, helpless. Finn stood frozen, all hope drained as their ship was swallowed by the giant. The fight was over. They were no longer in control. Finn slumped into the co-pilot's seat, defeated. It's the First Order. They've got us. It's all over, Rey, he muttered, his gaze fixed ahead. He knew their fate was sealed, and hope was gone. They weren't going to the Millennium system, and Jakku was out of reach. The First Order was relentless, and soon, whatever secrets BB-8 carried would be torn from him, his circuits erased. He was bitter, resigned, but still clung to one thing, the sense of what was right, the only thing that set him apart from the First Order. Rey, still struggling with the controls, snapped him out of his thoughts. What do we do? She asked, frustration in her voice. We can die, Finn replied, unable to look at her. But Rey refused to give up. There have to be other options, she insisted. Finn sighed, his voice heavy with the truth. We could run, if the engines worked. We could fight, if the blasters fired. We could step into the matter transporter, if we had one. He shook his head. We're dead. We don't even have hand weapons to fight a capture team. Then, his eyes widened as a new idea formed. Earlier, when you were working below, you said something about volatile chemicals mixing to create poisonous gases. Rey frowned. Yeah, but I fixed that. There's no blending now. Finn's voice grew intense. Can you unfix it? Realization dawned on her face and her eyes brightened with hope. Without a word, they both stood and headed back to the lounge, BB-8 trailing close behind. Together, they wrestled BB-8 down into the service area below deck, with the droid anxiously beeping as they made the descent. Rey worked fast, trying to undo the repair she'd made earlier. This'll work on stormtroopers? She asked, manipulating the tools. Finn nodded, staying calm. Standard helmets filter smoke, not toxins. They need special filters for that, and they won't think to check for gas. This freighter's a junker to them. They'll expect a routine takedown, not a gas attack. Rey raised an eyebrow. You Resistance guys really know your stuff. Know your enemy, Finn replied, just as the lights flickered back to full strength. In their hidden position, they could hear the muted sound of the ship's ramp lowering. Here they come, Finn whispered urgently. Hurry! Rey worked even faster. I'm hurrying, she hissed. I put this seal in place to keep us alive, not counter a hostile boarding. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the ship. The ramp had fully lowered, and they could hear muffled voices above.
Chewie.